I used to be a skinny fat teenager and was very insecure with the way that I looked, to the point where I felt so low confidence and couldn't truly be myself because of the way that I looked. I couldn't truly be who I wanted to be. I wanted to be the most confident, loudest guy in the room, but I couldn't do that when the way I looked made me feel so non-confident. This would be especially the case whenever I'd be in scenarios like being at the pool or being at the beach or even in the change rooms. Whenever I'd have to take my shirt off, I would just go into my shell even more because my physique was on show. And that would make me even more insecure when people could see the way that I looked. And whenever that would happen, I would feel so uncomfortable. And I absolutely hated that feeling. Then it got to a point where a photo was taken of me, and I looked at the photo and I just shaved my head. And I thought, wow, holy shit, I am genuinely so unattractive. And that's when I looked into losing fat, getting an aesthetic physique. And fast forward to now, I am in the best shape of my entire life. And I can finally be the most confident, loudest guy in the room because my physique reflects that. So, how did I get here? When it comes to nutrition, the most important thing you need to know is that you should eat naturally. So, when you're a skinny fat person, you have low muscle, but you have high fat. And when you want to build muscle, everyone online, all the fitness influencers tell you that you need to be bulking, eating more food. And then those same fitness influencers will tell you that you need to be cutting in order to lose fat. So because you want to lose fat and build muscle at the same time, the influencers will tell you it's not possible because one requires bulking and one requires cutting. Now, when you're skinny fat, you face this dilemma of whether you should bulk or whether you should cut because you want to lose fat, but you want to build muscle at the same time. What these fitness influencers will not tell you is that it is possible to do both at the same time, as long as the types of food that you are eating are natural, clean, and unprocessed. So when you build muscle and lose fat at the same time, it's called a body recomposition. What is required to lose weight, not fat, not muscle, but body weight, is being in a calorie deficit. But what they don't tell you is that when you're in a calorie deficit and losing body weight, that body weight can come from both fat and muscle. It's not all just fat. So if you're 70 kilograms and then you dropped 5 kilos of body weight, that 5 kilograms of body weight does not necessarily have to come from fat. And if you're eating processed junk foods, you can still be in a calorie deficit. But the upshot of eating that way is that those 5 kilograms of weight that you lose might actually come from muscle mass as opposed to fat mass. And so you might lose body weight, but actually look worse at the end of that. And this is why it is so important to eat natural foods. So natural foods are just foods that occur on Earth naturally. When you eat this way, these foods contain way more micronutrients, which support better muscle growth and fat loss, and also just support your health more generally. They support increases in testosterone, which again promotes muscle growth and fat loss. And when you have higher levels of testosterone, you have higher levels of energy to push hard when you're training in the gym. And that, of course, leads to better muscle growth as well. And even more importantly, you actually just feel better throughout the entire process because of that increase in energy that you feel. Because I initially started being in a calorie deficit, but I was still eating processed foods. So I was still eating fast food like McDonald's, KFC, and Subway. Sure, I was in a calorie deficit, but it made my life so difficult in terms of building muscle because the foods I was eating were not supportive of muscle growth and fat loss. They had low micronutrients. They were making my testosterone low. So my endocrine system and hormones were all messed up. And that negatively impacted my ability to make progress. These foods also have chemicals and ingredients in them that make you feel hungrier and give you cravings to eat more of those foods. So I'm sure you've been in those situations where there's like a packet of potato chips and you have one and you just cannot stop eating them. And it's because they contain ingredients literally designed to make you addicted to them. And when you're eating that way, of course, you're going to be eating way more food, which is going to make you fat. And worst of all, when you eat that way, you just feel low energy. You feel tired all the time. And that is not a pleasant feeling. So if you are skinny fat and you look like me in this photo, then I do suggest that you're in a calorie deficit, which means you're consuming less calories than you're burning every day. But it is so important that you get that calorie intake from foods that are natural, that are not processed. Because you can be in a calorie deficit eating unprocessed foods, eating Big Macs, eating KFC, eating Subway, but the weight that you lose will come from a higher proportion of muscle as opposed to fat. Whereas when you eat naturally, the weight you lose may all be fat, and you can actually gain muscle at the same time you're in a calorie deficit. And if you are a skinny fat guy that is looking for a full, in-depth guide as to how to eat for both muscle gain and fat loss at the same time, check out my program that is the link in the description below. Now, as part of that body recomposition, you need to be training in the gym. And I suggest you start doing this immediately if you're not already training. Because the main issue with your skinny fat physique is that you have low muscle mass. Because I wasted so much time being in a calorie deficit and losing weight only to build 0 kilograms or 0 pounds of muscle because I was simply not even training in the gym. So again, I lost weight, and that weight that I lost came from muscle because I was not training in the gym. And so I ended up just looking even flabbier and softer than I already did. So the way that you go about building muscle is by training in the gym. You need to lift weights. And there are 3 principles you need to know when it comes to lifting weights in the gym. The first is that you train to failure. What going to failure means is that on the exercise you're doing, you get to the point where your muscles have become so fatigued that you literally cannot do another repetition of the exercise, even if you tried your absolute hardest. Getting to that point provides the most amount of stimulus for muscle growth. And when you can do that consistently, that is when your muscles will begin to grow. The second principle is sufficient volume. So you need to be doing 10 to 20 sets per week per muscle group. So for example, if you want to grow your chest, you need to be doing somewhere between 10 to 20 sets of chest every week. And those 10 to 20 sets need to be to failure or at least near failure to provide a sufficient stimulus for your chest to grow. And that goes for all of your other muscle groups as well. The third principle is you need to focus more on compounds. So that volume that you are doing, you're doing that 10 to 20 sets per week per muscle group, those sets need to come from compound exercises. So for your chest, it's incline bench press. It's things like the isolateral press on the machine. These exercises are way more challenging for your chest, and you can lift heavier on these exercises. They're going to provide so much more stimulus for muscle growth as opposed to an exercise that's more of an isolation movement, like a chest fly. Chest flies are a lot easier to do. They don't provide as much breakdown in muscle tissue as doing a heavy incline bench press would. So you need to get those 10 to 20 sets from exercises that are actually compound exercises that challenge you. And if you're looking for the full breakdown as to how I train to transform from skinny fat to muscular and aesthetic, and what I've done for all my clients, you can check out the program again. That is the link in the description below. So if you learned anything from this video, please consider subscribing. We're getting to 20K subs soon, and I'll see you in the next one.